Hey everybody, this is Mr. Thornburg again. We're all back here now for Chapter 3, all about advocacy. How can we get our voice out? How can we influence the lawmaking process? Okay, so Chapter 3, all about advocacy here. And advocacy really is the active support, the art really, of supporting a cause. It's going to be convincing others that your process, your thing, your cause, your group is something that you should get behind. Your law, your ideas needs to be acted upon. And really, successful advocacy, successful advocating is going to be based on the gathering of facts. Can you support what you are telling other people about? Okay? Can you logically make the case for what you want to have happen? You're going to need to create an effective plan and a timeline for how you're going to do it. So how are you going to do it and in what time frame are you going to do it? And then, most importantly, know which level of government is responsible for addressing your cause. If you want a stoplight put up down the street from your house, going to the federal government probably is not the way to do it. Calling your local, your federal congressman is not where you need to be. That's going to be a state DOT issue, a State Department of Transportation. So knowing the right level of government is going to be really, really big. And as we go through this course, we're going to talk more about the different ways that you can learn that and how to advocate for your causes. Okay, so how do we advocate? What is the chief way that we advocate here in the United States? And that is through lobbying. Okay. Now I know in recent years, probably in the last 10 years, lobbying has gotten a really bad name. We think of lobbyists as these greedy guys who sit in their high-priced, overly expensive offices in Washington, D.C., take money from private interests, and essentially buy votes in Congress. And I guess there is some truth to that. There is some idea that that actually does happen. But really, a lobbyist essentially is a person who tries to convince lawmakers to vote for or against a particular issue. So if you call your congressman, you are in fact a lobbyist. Now, you're not a professional lobbyist. Professional lobbyists have to register. But you're a lobbyist. You're trying to convince them that this is what needs to happen. You can do this by writing letters. I know that's a fashion that's out of style now. But you can do that. You can send emails. You can make a phone call. Or you can donate money to a lawmaker during his or her election campaign and hope that by donating money they will pay attention to what you want. Where do these things, that sounds good, right? Individual citizens advocating for what they believe in, advocating for their issues, for what's important for them, and Congress and lawmakers representing and listening to their people. Where did this go off the tracks? How did this go wrong? In today's world, well, everybody has and everybody is influenced by what goes on, and they want to have a voice. And the United States recognizes corporations and organizations under certain procedures as people, as legal entities. And those organizations want their interests protected as well. And since there's not a person, since they're a company or an organization, they hire somebody to go and do it for them. And they can put lots of money into that. And we get groups like the AMA, the American Medical Association, AARP, which is one of the most effective lobbying organizations out there. The NRA, Coca-Cola, Walmart, all these groups have lobbyists that they're paying to protect their interests, to make sure that Congress passes rules and laws that are beneficial to them, or will at least not be hurtful to them, okay? Now, the key way that we advocate, you and I as citizens, as Joe's citizen out on the street, is to vote. Okay, and that's really one of our key rights, and I think really should be a duty. It's not something we can require people to do, but you vote, and that's how you influence what the government does. Now, I know some people say voting doesn't matter. The districts are organized and elections are rigged to support certain groups of people. And let's face it, more than likely, California in this election in 2016 is going to be Democrat. All 55 electoral votes for California is probably going to go to the Democratic nominee. New York is probably going to be Democratic. Georgia South Carolina, Texas are probably going to go to Republicans. So if you're a Democrat living in Texas and you vote for Democrats, does your vote matter? Yes, it does, okay? Because you're, by voting for who you believe in, by voting for the person you believe is going to represent your best interest, you tell the eventual winner, even if it's not your person, that this is what you want, that they have to listen to you and represent you, that they don't have 100% of the people behind them. There are also other ways in which your voting can actually influence the government, because sometimes the government wants the people to make the decision. There are certain hot button issues, key issues, that they want the people to actually weigh in. One of those issues, I think we just had a vote here recently in the city of Lincoln. Can we have breweries to brew beer? Okay. A few years ago, was Lincoln County had, can we have liquor by the drink? Can you have alcoholic beverages in Lincoln County? And Lincoln County commissioners in the city of Lincoln, instead of just making the decision themselves, they actually looked at the people and said, we want you to have a voice. That way, if you want it, you can vote for it, and we listen to the will of the people. If you say no, well, by God, we're not going to have it. The people don't want it, and we're not going to do it. That's called a referendum. They're going to refer the legislative act to the voters for final approval or rejection, okay? Yes or no. And it's a nice little up and down vote. A lot of bonds that we do here in North Carolina come through referendum styles. We also have what's called an initiative. You feel that there needs to be a law let's say we're at school, limiting the number of hours that students go to school. School's should not start before 9:30 in the morning and should end by 2:30 in the afternoon. Okay, classes should be 1 hour long. You and a bunch of students and parents get together. You create a petition, and you get enough votes, is pushed in there, and eventually it goes through the legislative process and maybe even a referendum. This way you have a hand in creating the law. And also you see in rare cases, and certainly not in North Carolina that much, recall elections. If you believe that your elected official is incompetent or is incapable of doing the job or is just plain out wrong for the position, recall elections allow voters to remove those officials before the next election occurs. And that process comes by a petition. You have to get X number of people to sign the petition saying this should happen. And if there's enough signatures there, we go to a special election, a recall election. And there's generally two questions asked on these ballots. One, should the person in office be removed? Yes or no? If enough people vote yes, then they look at the second question. The second question that you have to fill out both parts. You fill out yes, and then you say, okay, who should be governor? Okay, if we're using governor, I'm thinking of governor. Let's say Pat McCrory. The Democrats managed to get enough people to sign a petition to remove Pat McCrory from being governor of North Carolina. We go to the election. You're 18 years old. You can go vote. You get your ballot. The first question is, should Pat McCrory be removed as governor of North Carolina, yes or no? You bubble in the circle that you want. The second question on there is, who should become governor of North Carolina? And at that point in time, anybody, you can file to become governor of North Carolina, and if you win enough votes, then you would be there, okay? If enough people voted yes to the first part, yes, he should be removed. Whoever won enough votes in the second half of that question on the ballot, the second question, would then become governor by plurality vote. The most recent time that this happened successfully is going to be in California. This is how Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'll be back, became governor. They removed Gray Davis. California had a serious budget shortfall, and the citizens of California said this governor is bad. He's not doing the right job. And so they said, should we remove him from the office? Enough people checked yes, and they said who? Arnold Schwarzenegger was on there for the Republicans. Gray Davis ran for the Democrats. It'd been really wild to have enough people say, yes, he should be removed. Well, who should be governor? The guy we just removed from office. That'd be kind of weird, but it could happen, theoretically. Now, there are some restrictions on voting, and you need to know what those are. You see them there on the screen. To vote, you have to be a U.S. citizen. Okay, if you're not a U.S. citizen, regardless of whether you're here legally or you're a resident alien, a permanent alien, you have to be a U.S. citizen to vote. You have to be at least 18 years of age, as protected in the U.S. Constitutional amendments. You have to be a resident of the state, district, and precinct in which you are registered to vote. Okay, so for instance, I'm registered through the Love Memorial Precinct in Lincoln County. I cannot vote in an election down at East Lincoln in Denver. I can't do that. I have to vote where I'm at. I can't go to South Carolina and vote. I can't go to Hickory, North Carolina and vote. I have to vote in Lincoln, North Carolina at Love Memorial Elementary School. The second part is that you have to register to vote. Okay, a lot of states now offer same-day registration. The registration is really easy. It's a quick form. You register to vote, you send it in, and they send you back a thing. You're registered to vote. There's really no reason why anyone doesn't vote. Okay, and I encourage you all to vote. You need to vote. And so that's advocacy. We use voting, we use our initiative, our petitions, our recalls as a way to try to influence legislation, and we also use lobbying. Okay, we can write letters, we can make phone calls, we can send emails, we can donate money to people, to our lawmakers in an attempt to influence their votes and influence their actions. So that's a quick thing on the lobbying process, on the advocacy process, how we can advocate for issues that are important and dear to us. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.